I'm going to show you just one more example to show how this is changing the availability of remedies. And this is not about additions, this is not about new proofings to wacko remedies. No, this is just making visible and usable what is there already. So the example I chosen is the chest pain was from inspiration. And if remedies are not copied to the sub-rubrics, you find 9. But you see there is this rubric under stitching with 12 remedies. And if you combine them, you copy them to the related sub-rubric, you have 18. You go from 9 to 18 remedies. If your patient says, I have pain in the heart from inspiration. If your patient says deep inspiration, originally in Kent, even in the early versions of synthesis, you would only have these 3 remedies, okay? But in synthesis 9.2 and later on, you have 14 remedies because there are all these remedies hidden in the sub-rubrics, Kentian remedies, okay? Amel also has one more. So this is the thing we did with the descriptions of pain, which I believe for the past information, but even for all the information that has been added after we made this change, is really making available remedies in an optimal way to all homeopaths.
And what would you say has been the hardest, if you think about the past 40 odd years of you doing this, or maybe specifically with synthesis, what's been the hardest part of all of that for you?
Well, the hardest part was in the...
Hello, homies, and a very warm welcome to Homeopathy Hangout, where today we get to hang out with our lovely return guest, Dr. Frederik Schroyens. Welcome to the show.
Well, thank you very much, Eugenie.
I have to tell you something interesting. Do you actually know that your previous episodes, I just went to go look them up before we started, and your first one was episode 121, and your second episode was 212. I didn't even plan that. That was total coincidence, but I thought that was quite nice synchronicity. So for our listeners, you can go listen back on episode 121 and episode 212 to learn more about Frederik. But today he's going to be talking to us about synthesis, which he was the creator of 40 years ago. And I'm really excited for you to share more with us. He's also got a slide that he's sharing with us. So if you are on rumble.com, you can just watch the visual there. But for anyone on audio, if there's anything visual, I will just interpret it for you so you don't lose out on any of the good stuff. So the floor is yours, Frederik.
Yes, thanks a lot again, Eugenie. It's a pleasure. And what I would like to emphasize today is not so much a version of synthesis, but repertory and repertorization and what has happened to it in my lifetime, my career, in fact. And the one word that is coming up is digitalization, because there was a time there was no computer, and the time was even that people, or homeopaths, let's say, had a big aversion to computers getting into the hands or into the practices of the homeopaths. And with David Warkentin, I think I have been one of the major people making a little change to that. And how did that story start? By chance, by chance.
Like all good stories.
Yes. And so there was this person, you see the photograph, his name is Jean Fichefet, John in French. And he had a child with a recurrent tonsillitis, and you may know the story, we hear it so often. Tonsillitis gets too bad, so they say they need antibiotics, they take antibiotics, get through the acute, but a few months, even a few weeks later, the story repeats, the tonsillitis gets too bad, again needs antibiotics, etc. So this was the story, the health story of his son. And he took advice. He went to see a homeopath in his city, a French-speaking city in Belgium, Namur, N-A-M-U-R. And that homeopath gave a remedy which not only cured the acute, but got him out of the cycle. No more recurrent tonsillitis. And the father and the mother, the family, they were all very happy with this result, unexpected result. Seems like a story we have known many times.
Yeah.
The only difference here, relevant difference, is that this person was a professor of mathematics at the Faculty of Computer Science. And he got intrigued so much by homeopathy. And he said, how are you working? What is these books you're using? The homeopath was using Kent's Repertory. And what are you doing with your fingers in between the pages? What is the repertorization process, etc.? And he said, I want to do something back. I want to give something back to the profession. It's very clear for me that if we digitalize this, there will be major advantages. And so he was one of the very first people on the planet who digitalized Kent's repertory, and also then consequently created the digital repertorization. It was on a computer, which gave birth to radar in the mid-80s. I got involved into that from the beginning because I was president of the biggest education center in Belgium at the time. We had, in our first year, we had 220 students. And so he contacted me, and I have been giving him advice all along the time, all along his involvement. And Ex Libris is written there because he also started to digitalize Materia Medica and allowing word searches to find information in the books. It was always not existing. There was a time all of this was not existing.
What is Ex Libris? I haven't heard of that.
Yeah, this is the first Materia Medica program.
Okay.
So we started with digitalizing, I think it was first Clark's dictionary, and then Allen and Herring and Böricke's Materia Medica. And so, yeah, you could word search in it, basic word search. But it was the first one, you see? Yeah. Now, this is the digitalization. As I say, there was a time there was only a book. And the angle I would like to take now is, if Kent would wake up from his coffin, he would say, "What happened to my book?" This is the first page of Kent's book, where you see abandoned referring to forsaken, the famous first rubric abrupt with Natmur and Tarantula, the remedies, the degrees, etc. You know it. And this has been printed not tens of thousands of times, but hundreds of thousands of times, because some people have called this the Bible, the Bible of homeopathy, because this is where you find the inspiration for a remedy, okay? Now, if we jump to the last version, printed version of Synthesis, this is the page you see. And there's a few striking things. First of all, of course, it's all much more dense because there is much more information put onto one page. And then you see, of course, you see here the rubric abrupt, the same rubric, but with many more remedies. Yeah. Okay, so the additions work. Okay. And in this rubric, you see, for example, here, the eagle, SRJ5, means Jeremy Sher's book on eagle. So it's referenced. Everything is referenced. Remember, here in Kent's repertory, nothing is referenced. And so the referencing is one change I implemented from the beginning, because I wanted to bring it on a scientific level. And you know that if you state whatever in a scientific paper or Congress, whatever, you have to give references of what you say. And you have to.
I really admire your integrity, but also you made your life very hard for yourself by doing that, because that would have been a lot of work.
Well,
but I very much admire your integrity.
We did it from the beginning, and we've used, for those who know a bit about it, along the bibliographical Vancouver referencing style. So we have a catalog of, I think it's more than 4,500 bibliographic references, Vancouver style, everything very precise, okay? And what is the consequence of doing that? Even if it's been a big job, the consequence is that people can check, does abrupt, for example, really exist in disproving of Jeremy Sher? And if it doesn't, or they don't find it, they will contact me and say, I don't find it, I think there is a mistake, or etc., etc. And so it helps to increase the quality of the content, which has been one of our main totems. And the quality of information is key. And so this is about the referencing. Now, on the same page, you may see another striking thing, and that is that abrupt is here on the second half of the page. And on the first half of the page, there is these other rubrics, daytime, mind morning, mind forenoon, etc., which to anyone using Kent may seem a little strange. These are, in fact, as the references again say, rubrics from B. Böninghausen and B.G. Boger, okay? And so, indeed, in Synthesis, several versions already, we have integrated Kent's approach and Böninghausen's approach. And I would like to make you aware a little bit, this is like the left and the right wing in homeopathic repertory authorship. And so I think it's interesting to contrast them to understand also the way that people may analyze a case in a very Kantian way or analyze a case in a very Böninghausen-like way. Both are valid and both may be interesting or more interesting one case as opposed to another case. Now, the main idea of Kant's approach is the strong and striking symptom. So when there is a cure, when there is a proving, what is the strong and striking symptom? And this is what he, as an author, has been putting in his repertory. Be careful, don't call it a detail. I prefer to call it a specific symptom. And what is the difference? A detail is something that people say, oh, it's a detail, I'm not sure about it. The specific symptom, totally sure, because it's there again and again. And so every time I turn the eyes sideways, I have a pain in my eyes. This is a specific symptom. A detail would be, oh yeah, maybe I had it one time.
Yeah.
No, we're looking, and this is why I prefer strong and striking symptoms. Now, this is Kant's approach, and this is a symptom structured in his repertory. Böninghausen approach is much more generalized, some people like to say. I put a question mark there, and I'll explain you why. So in Böninghausen, we don't find these kind of specific symptoms. We find motion of the eyes, any motion of the eyes, more general, you see? Still not generalized. And Böninghausen, in fact, himself uses the word genius symptom. And this is, even to understand the Böninghausen repertory approach, very important to understand the difference. What is generalized? Well, let's look at a specific Kantian symptom, pain above the left eye, okay, the morning on waking. And let's suppose that we have 3 remedies in this rubric, okay? To generalize those 3 remedies would mean that we add them to the related super-rubrics. So first we leave out the waking and we add it to above the left eye in the morning. Then we leave out the morning and we add it to above the left eye on waking. Then we leave out the left and we add it to above the eyes in the morning on waking, and so on. You got the idea? And so these are related super-rubrics. And to put those remedies in the related super-rubrics is generalizing them. I have never been in favor of that, even if some other authors have been doing it in a systematic way. With a computer you can do it even very quickly, because this is, I believe, diluting the information. And it's not coherent, not faithful to the approach of Böninghausen. So let me now explain to you what is the approach of Böninghausen. Well, it's the genius symptom. And the genius symptom is the symptom that is there everywhere and runs through the remedy. You see the yellow mark at the genius of the remedy must correspond to all aspects of the genius of the general disease. So remedy, materia medica, disease, patient, okay? So the short of it is the definition. A genius symptom is a symptom that appears in many provers or many cures. You meet it very often. Like stitching is a genius symptom for bryonia because you may have the stitching in many places. So it's the strong things, it's not the generalized. You see the difference with generalized, the symptom of the eyes there, and this one, it's totally different, okay? So we had this very specific approach from Kant, the genius approach from Böninghausen, and we have been integrating them into synthesis, into one structure, because remember, this was the idea, we want to have a repertory which is integrating, synthesis, and in fact, everything that is available as an approach to help practitioners, homeopaths, finding remedies and families, okay? And let me quickly tell you how we did it. We did not mix the rubrics. So there are Kantian rubrics, there are Böninghausen rubrics. We started doing it, but then we said, oh, Kant won't be happy and Böninghausen won't be happy.
You don't want them coming in like torturing you, coming out of the grave and haunting you.
Absolutely. So we separated them. And so in synthesis, which is a Kantian-based repertory, we left all the specific Kantian symptoms. And if we added to them, it was because it was a specific remedy to that specific symptom. So the specificity was maintained, was respected. But we added also more general symptoms, not generalized, but general symptoms like stomach numb. What does it mean? It means people say, I have burning in the stomach, I have pain in the stomach, I have bloating in the stomach, whatever, 2, 3, 4 complaints. And the typical thing is my stomach complaints come on around noontime. This is stomach numb, okay? So this is about the integration of Kent and Böninghausen, which I feel is a big achievement, and I must be grateful to Dr. Shiva Raman from Kerala, India, who came to my house and stayed with us for 3 months to work on this. So to give you an idea, full time, yeah. Now, the next angle I would like to explain to you is the big leap we take is about the digital repertory. So again, I go back in the time machine and remind you that there was a time there was no digital repertory. And so we go back to Kent's repertory and how he, as a repertory author, created his repertory. And so Kent used or was looking at different sources. There were some repertories existing, like a small repertory by Timothy Field Allen. Böninghausen's therapeutic pocketbook was there. Jar had a small repertory. And in fact, in the last years, before he started to create his own repertory, he was mostly using Lippe's repertory. And he interleaved it. So interleave means in between every 2 pages, they inserted a blank page. And he was taking notes of everything he heard from colleagues on congresses, in papers, magazines, etc., and taking notes and notes and notes, collecting information. This is what the repertory author is doing. The first stage is collecting information from written sources from everywhere. He even interleaved his Lippe repertory 3 times, 3 pages, 3 blank pages. Incredible,
between each page, yeah. I would love. Where's the copy of that book? Do you know?
Don't know. It must be in some library in the United States. I don't know.
I wonder if it still exists. That would be amazing to see that.
Yeah. And so on the basis of all these sources, Ken then started to create his repertory, which was first released, the first part of the first edition in 1897. He completed it and then released another second version in 1908. Then, a little after this, I think 1916, he died. So the last edition he edited was the second edition. And you may know there is a whole story, many people have been writing about it. But basically, the summary is that the third, fourth, fifth, fifth, even sixth edition were no major changes. And some people say, oh, we found some additions from his writings. Oh, we will add a few things. And so basically, there was the first edition, the second edition, and then not much movement. And people were totally happy with Kent's repertory, totally happy. And in fact, until the 70s, there was this idea, the Virgin Kent is what you need, because he has information, I think it's 695 remedies, so many symptoms, etc., etc. The Virgin Kent is what you need, and it's, yeah. But there came a change in the 70s. First of all, through the work of the Germans Bartel and Klunker. They created the synthetic repertory, which was printed in 2-3 steps, and which was basically showing additions from 14 sources, Allen, Herring, Clark, the classical ones, into 5 chapters. And many homeopaths were impressed because they saw, yeah, indeed, this remedy in this rubric, it's not in Kent and it's valid. Yeah, indeed, it's in Clark's dictionary, etc. A change happened. Oh, maybe we need to add something to Kent's repertory. And this was the time that I was born into homeopathy, when this was changing. And I've been using Kent's repertory on my desk, and then the 3 books of Klunker also on my desk. So I had a big desk to look a mind symptom in this book and a general symptom in this book, and then a bladder symptom in Kent's book. Whatever.
Wow, because was it like 78 that you graduated from homeopathy school? Hey, you did your medical practice before that for the
78, yes.
78, wow.
Yeah, so on. And then another homeopath came in, Kunzli from Switzerland, who did a similar thing. And he added information from 72 sources throughout all chapters in his Repertorium Generale. So in the 70s, it was changing. And so the basis of synthesis is Kent. So we basically digitalized Kent. You remember that? Eh? And I still remember this conversation. It's one of these conversations you never forget, is when all was done and people were happy and repertorizing, and it became like an interesting product for the community. He said, do you know, Frederik, this Kent repertory is just a database. Eh? In French, he said, Frédéric, ce n'est qu'une banque de données. What did he mean? You can change anything to it. It's just on the computer. You can change and add and correct, and ce n'est qu'une banque de données. The book had become just something open, you see? And I accepted that invitation, and so we started to create the first version of synthesis, yes, which was an elaboration from Kent. Now, again, running through time, Kent, so what's the consequence of this invitation and this work? Well, Kent himself created his first repertory, released his first repertory in 1897, and his second in 1908. I released the first version of my synthesis in 1987. Do you see the yellow?
Yeah, yeah.
You were speaking about the
About
game with
numbers.
numbers.
Yes, I love numbers.
You see it?
I do.
Fantastic.
I love numbers. Every day on my phone when it's 11:11 or 1:11, I get so excited. I'm all about numbers. That's great.
Yeah. And so there have been until 2022, we released 13th version of synthesis, which is called Synthesis Adonis. And so from 87 to 22, there's 35
Wow.
years. And then before releasing the first version and since releasing the last version, this is why I'm speaking now about 40 years of my involvement, you see.
I don't think if I clap my hands, you will hear it. Can you hear it? This mic is
little
pretty,
bit.
the mic is pretty good, so it cuts out like other sounds. But this is me like just clapping hands for you, because the perseverance that it would have taken to consistently improve on your work over all these decades, I don't think anyone can comprehend what that must be. And I've said to you before we started recording, I was just hanging out with Carol Boyce in Bali, at our conference, and she was talking about her 40 plus years of all the work that she's done. And people like her and you are the types of people that I want to learn from and that I respect more than anything else, because you're not just a fly-by-nighter. You've been in the trenches. You've worked your butt off for our homeopathic community so that we have an incredible tool that we can use in our clinics. You've done such a good job, Frederik. Such a good job.
Well, I'd be very happy to hear that.
Well,
Thank
I'm happy
you.
for all the hard work you've done. Also, you have given me a bit of a headache now, because in synthesis Adonis, there's butterflies and there's crystals, and it's even like families and things like that, which it opens the world up so much more. And I've gone and re-repertorized my old cases with a new synthesis Adonis, and it's helped me to come up with
Yes,
all new remedies, which has been really helpful for
correct.
cases that are stuck. It's been
That's the
incredible.
goal. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah.
Mm.
And this is exactly my next sentence. You are clairvoyant because you're predicting my next sentence. Because what is the main difference that we digitalized the repertory is that we were able to move ahead so much quicker. Just look at the figures. Kent created 2 editions of his repertory in 11 years. In those 35 years, with the help of many people, of course, I have released 13 editions.
Amazing.
So we've been able to integrate and make available to you and many other people so much more information in so much less time.
Mm. I have to ask you, do you dream in like rubrics? Like, do you have like rubrics come up in your dreams?
No,
You
not
don't?
really.
Do you think in rubrics? Actually, you sent me an email today, and you actually sounded like Yoda, because I was telling you about the power that's back on, and you wrote, "I read you, happy we are," and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, you sound like Yoda. You sound like you speak in a rubric."
No, I have many ideas. I'm one of these people that the mind is quite active. And so when I wake up, I may have these inspirations to do or certain things, but my dreams are happily not too much on the level of work.
Okay, great. That's good. You need a break at some stage.
Yeah, I need a break sometime. Yeah. Okay. So this is the same in figures, and the olive green to the left is Kent with 450,000 remedy occurrence, and at the right block is the outer reference, just the same. So the remedies have increased about 3 times to the last version of Adonis, which is the blue to the right curve. And the outer references, because we reference a remedy even several times, if several authors confirm them. You see, this gives more confidence to that remedy in that rubric. It's about times 4, and I would say with all the other information we integrated into synthesis, I would say we are today probably at about times 5 the information of Kent. Okay? Yeah, just one other synthesis, I think 6 or 7, has been the first to have more than 2,000 remedies, document more than 2,000 remedies. With the Donis, we made the jump to document more than 3,000 remedies in one book.
Amazing.
Now, this was about the repertory, the impact, the fight, the quest to offer digital repertory, but there's also a lot to say about digital repertorization. And again, if I may, I will take you back in the time machine, the moment when there was only paper repertorization. And I've been there, this is how I started, okay? And many people did use Kent's way, one of Kent's ways. And this is what we call technically repertorization by elimination. So it means you have the story, and then you ask yourself, what are the strange, rare, and peculiar symptoms of this patient? And this needs some reflection. You'll understand why. Because you will take the remedies of one rubric and the second rubric and find out which are the common ones. In this example, which is taken from Kent's lesser writings, you have sheep dung and a strong craving for open air, which in Kent's repertory offers these 12 remedies as common. Okay? Then you go and look at the next rubric, no desire for stool many days, and 2 remedies are out. Occipital headache, which was the main complaint of this patient, 3 remedies are out. Just like this, adding, jarring, aggravates, etc., you go down, and eventually reaching one remedy, which is the one prescribed. Okay? This is repertorization by eliminating each time the remedies that are not present in the next rubric. Okay? Even if this is a practical way for those who can only use the paper, it's, apologize, dear James, a dangerous way. And I'll show you this. This is a real case of another patient, a patient of mine with a headache. Okay? So the 2 main symptoms, characteristic of strong odors and exposure to wind. You see that? And then there are some mentals and generals, okay? But this is the main thing. So if we would go the Kentian way, reflect a little bit, what is the way to enter the case? What are the 2 key symptoms to consider? We would say, oh, we have very specific, interesting, strong modalities of the headache, strong odors and wind. Let's go and cross them. And then we would find aconite, you see here, aconite in common, and we would find nux vomica. But if we add and then we would go, as in the previous chart, we would go down and try to find out whether it's aconite or nux vomica most appropriate, okay? First of all, it's already quite limiting, it's only 2 remedies. But worse, if we add a few other symptoms, mental and general, we see that 5 remedies have other symptoms, and anxiety at time is set points to argentum nitricum, the generals here, they may point to sepia, etc., which have many of the symptoms of the patient, but not the 2 symptoms of the headache. And so you see the bias of this approach, because from the onset, you take a critical decision on which you cannot come back. With the repertorization, you can take any symptom in any order, and at the end, you will see sulfur, lycopodium, argentum nitricum, aurum sepia, all as possibilities. You can go to Materia Medica and decide what to prescribe.
Yeah, it's so much easier. I used paper repertory in my first year. And then after that, that's when because I did 4 years. And so my first year we did paper. And then as soon as Mike from Similimum in New Zealand, he came to speak to the students. And as soon as he came to speak to us and he said there's a computer repertory, I bought one straight away because I was like, I'm not doing this with paper anymore. Yeah. It's hard work, but it's also a good process. I think it's like, as a homeopath, I think we're training to be homeopaths. I think it's important to do this process to kind of understand it on a deeper level.
Yeah. But you will miss a lot of remedies because your choice of the 2 first symptoms is so impactful that you may miss many remedies.
Yeah, that's true.
Now, this is done in Synthesis Adonis, as you can see here, and it's a view, a Kent repertory view, because in Adonis, another thing, I will not elaborate too much on it, but we have created views. Everybody can look or use a part of Adonis, a view, according to their wishes. And even just Kent's repertory. So if Kent would have had my patients, he would have come up with these remedies as a possibility, okay? Going back to the first part of my lecture, we can also select Berger and Böninghausen as a view. And then, of course, you will only see the more general symptoms, not headache from strong odors, etc. Yeah? But look, there is something striking. You see aurum, lycopodium, sepia. You see that? If you go back here to the first, you see aurum, lycopodium, sepia. So the Kentian approach with the specific symptoms and the Berger-Böninghausen approach with the general symptoms, they at least partially seem to offer the same remedies. Fascinating, no?
Yeah, interesting. It's really good to
Now,
see it laid out side by side like that.
yeah. Now we want to go from here. And so I told you there are repertory views. In fact, in Adonis, we have more than 20 repertory views. And one way of viewing them is having all the sources considered that are conservative, which, as you see, this repertorization frame is much more populated, even for the agentum nitricum. There are more symptoms that are covered than in the first repertorization. So it means we get more arguments, and lycopodium is even stronger now than agentum nitricum. And lilium tigrinum, which we haven't seen, has come up as a possibility, you see? So when we expand the number of authors, in fact, the more remedies populate the rubrics, and in the repertorization frame, you see more remedies and confirmations in different symptoms for them.
I didn't even know that that was an option. So you've got various authors in there that are more
Yeah,
conservative
that's a
approach, and
little
then
window here. And you may be motivated even more to try it out by the next slide, because obviously when in this case, such is a real case, this is a real case of mine, got many remedies, okay? Agentum nitricum, lycopodium, natmur, sulfur, got all of them, some result, not the remedy, okay? You may be tempted to use all information from synthesis. We call it a full synthesis, okay? Full repertory, you see?
oh wow,
And what do you see?
there's a
That
whole other
basically
remedy that's
almost
come up.
all these symptoms are covered by unknown, so far unknown remedy, which is Acocantera oblongifolia. And this is the remedy I prescribed to this person. I tell him, come back after a month, come back after 6 weeks. He even doesn't come back anymore. He says, no, I'm fine. I will come back later. I had him on the phone since then a few times, but basically it's a big change. It's a big change for him. So this remedy that was discovered
Wow.
because of the full view of synthesis Adonis.
That is insane. I had no idea that you can do that. And that remedy didn't repertorize in that top 10 at all. And then you did full repertory and then it comes right up to the top. That is incredible.
Yeah. Right. Let me go to the next section I would like to highlight. Another work which in fact took years. I'm not going into all the details, the smaller jobs we've done, but when you're speaking about dreaming, this is a job I have been dreaming of since a long time. I'll tell you why. For years. And we eventually did it. And it's related to the descriptions of pain. Now, the descriptions of pain, I will explain a little bit for everybody, so everybody is along with my way of thinking. So the structure of repertory basically is chapters along the head, eye, nose, chest, etc. You may know that Kent was an anatomopathologist, so one of his inventions was to structure the repertory along the anatomy. And then in each chapter, you have a vertical structure of symptoms. You will have eye pain, and then left and right, the sides, the S, the times in the morning, the modality, from the sunlight, the extension, the localization, and the description of pain is the last one. Eye pain, stitching. That's the description of pain. But you also have a horizontal structure of a symptom. So, and in this horizontal structure of a symptom, the description in Kent's way, he altered the repertory, always on level 3. I'll show you this symptom here. When there is a cutting pain in the head from cold air, cutting will always be on level 3, cutting or whatever other description of pain. Okay? Now, this I knew, and many people who know the repertory very well, is a limit, is another important limit. I'll explain you why and what we have done. So, if cold air aggravates is the modality of the headache, you do find remedies under head pain, cutting, etc. Yes. But you also find there is a rubric head pain shooting, which has cold air. Maybe some other remedies. And if cold air is the main thing of your headache, then why wouldn't you consider the remedies that are under tearing? Because when you ask a patient, how is your headache? Sometimes the reply is very clear. They say it's stitching, but most of the time it's not clear. They say it's stitching, it's pressing, it's a little bit drawing. They give several words. So, you know, between all the things we can ask a patient, which side, which modality, the description of pain is often the least reliable aspect. And through this structure, putting the description of pain on the third level, the modalities are hidden. So we need a change of structure. And the suggested change of structure is to put the description of pain at the end. You see the yellow, and it becomes head pain, cold air, cutting at the end, and you have 3 remedies. Now, this may still be a little bit abstract, and I'm gonna try and show you very concretely how it would be. When we put the description of pain at the end, for cutting, shooting, cramping, lancinating, in Kent, I think there are already 140 descriptions of pain. Then if they are related to cold air, they are together. And you see on the screen in synthesis 9.1, it would be cold air aggravates, a cold air. Oh, but then I see air cold. Yes, indeed. Sometimes Kent used cold air, and other rubrics he used air cold. So they're not together. So when we do this work, when we said, oh, we want to change the structure of the repertory to put this information, to make it more easily available, we don't need to just put the description of pain in the end. We need to restructure all those levels, because otherwise synthesis 9.1 would be like totally confused, you see? And so we changed cold air aggravate in all the places. So it became one rubric with similar sub-rubrics, cutting, shooting, tearing.
So much more sense. That's so much better.
Yeah. And it means that cold air aggravates now has all those remedies of this important modality. We create almost a new modality, more populated, more remedies, etc. The same goes for the times and the sites and the localizations. And this is a work which took several years. This is why in the history of synthesis, there is a synthesis 9.0, 9.1, and 9.2, because we did it in several steps. It took several years. And how important is this? Well, I think it's one of the most important things I've done to the repertory. And I'm going to show you this with a true story. So I had in the early days of my practice, I had a patient with pains in the heart, okay? And he was telling me, he said, it's worse when drinking. So I was happy. As a Kentian, I go to the repertory and I saw chest pain, heart, C, coughing, E, eating, in between, no D, no drinking. I was unhappy. So I prescribed a remedy. I don't remember which one. The person, unfortunately, got a heart attack, didn't die, but anyway, I was unhappy. And I thought, oh, I forgot something critical in this patient. Because at the time, me too, I had my Kent repertory interleaved, as you can see on this picture.
Oh, that looks awesome.
Yeah. And most of those interleaves were exactly like this, was extending the rubrics. And this was in the chapter I, barely see it here, but it's the eye pain extending to the head, okay? And under drawing, there is another rubric, and also extending to the forehead, to the occiput. And under pressing, there's another rubric with other remedies, etc. So we made those lists. And my friends, my colleagues who were with me, started homeopathy in the late 70s. We all did this. We had all these little papers saying, oh, remember this rubric, and maybe you need to look another remedy there, etc., etc. Because we know this problem, this limit, that the description of pain was hiding, in fact, all those other remedies and rubrics we needed. And indeed, when you turn a few pages and you go to chest pain stitching, there is the modality after drinking with China. And so I felt really very sorry and very bad that I hadn't done the exercise to go through all the pages and find a rubric drinking, because chest pain, heart pain drinking, I didn't hear it many times in all my career. It was really a strong and striking symptom. Probably China would have been the remedy. I missed it, you see. And so we did a job to change it all for everybody. And look here, you have the chest pain heart, and the drinking comes first and the stitching is there. And the drinking is in between the cough, you see the cough from the first screen, and even the cough symptom, look here, has also a rubric at stitching with 3 remedies, Agaricus mesoreum nat mur, which is different from the only tarantula remedy. So you expand the pain in the heart when it's aggravated from cough. And the eating the same. You see 6 remedies, but look here, there is asparagus, which is not in the main rubric. So we said we have to do it all through the repertory. We first did it for all the pain sections and then eventually for the whole repertory. And I'm going to show you just one more example to show how this is changing the availability of remedies. And this is not about additions. This is not about new proofings to wacko remedies. No, this is just making visible and usable what is there already. So the example I chosen is the chest pain words from inspiration. And if remedies are not copied to the sub-rubrics, you find 9. But you see there is this rubric under stitching with 12 remedies. And if you combine them, you copy them to the related sub-rubric, you have 18. You go from 9 to 18 remedies. If your patient says, I have pain in the heart from inspiration. If your patient says deep inspiration, originally in Kent, even in the early versions of synthesis, you would only have these 3 remedies, okay? But in synthesis 9.2 and later on, you have 14 remedies, because there are all these remedies hidden in the sub-rubrics, Kentian remedies, okay? Amel also has one more. So this is the thing we did with the descriptions of pain, which I believe for the past information, but even for all the information that has been added after we made this change, is really making available remedies in an optimal way to all homeopaths.
And, you know, Frederik, when you say this, and no offense to Ken, because he did a great job already, and he couldn't have done all of this in his lifetime, I'm sure, but it makes so much sense what you've done to put the quality of the pain towards the end, because how easy was that to miss that? And exactly what you said about the way that people describe pain, like it can be exactly the same type of pain, not that we'll ever really know because you can't know how other person experiences, but they'll use a different word. And then we'll miss a really good rubric because the pain is the thing that we're repertorizing. So what you've done is revolutionary, but yet so simple and common sense.
Yeah.
Great job. Great job. And I also just want to say, like, I really appreciate understanding the behind the scenes of the work that goes into creating something like this, because there's a whole, there's so much work that goes into this. And for us to understand why the changes were made, I think it's very important for us as a profession, not just to use the tool and think this is it, but to know where it came from and the logic that went behind doing this. And I absolutely loved my interview with Roger Morrison as well, because he explained why he did his clinical materia medica the way that he did, you know, where he took that from, how he referenced the reasons behind what he did. And that's what I want to know. I want to know, if you've made that decision, why did you do it? Why is it in there? But I'm also an Aries. And so my mum apparently had a very hard time with me when I was a little girl, because I would not do anything she said. Then she found an astrology book, and it said in there that apparently you have to explain to Aries girls why they have to do anything. And ever since then, apparently it wasn't an issue. So for me, you have to explain to me why you've done that, and then I'm happy. So what you're sharing here for me is gold, because I will never look at synthesis it's the same ever again, because every time I use it now, I'll understand the reasoning behind why you've done what you've done, and it makes so much sense. So thank you. Have you got some more examples for us?
No, I will still have one more chapter.
Okay.
The one thing I would like to repeat, in fact, and emphasize is that in order to use the result, the fruit of our labor, people don't have to do anything. They just take chest pain, heart, inspiration, aggravate, and they have the remedies. Everything has been done, prepared.
Amazing. We
Yeah,
got it handed on a platter.
exactly. All right. So the last section I would like to explain a few things about, because we've done, again, many things, is about families. And you know, the development of families, even if it was mentioned even by Kent, you know, to do some family thinking when analyzing a case, has taken a big leap in the late 80s and so on. And of course, a repertory is a reflection of what is alive, what is living in the community. So we had to follow suit and to go along and make changes. And this is also, as an author of the repertory, one of the things in which I have invested a lot. And I'm going to give you more or less two ideas. So first of all, speaking about repertorization and switching sometimes repertorization, now I'll speak again about repertorization. You can add a family, and adding a family in the meaning of the homeopathic family, because a family has a very specific meaning in taxonomy, a certain level on the taxonomical tree. Family homeopathically is different from this because it means a group of remedies that is belonging together for a reason. And so all the levels of the taxonomical tree, for example, also a class and order, are families homeopathically. And one other family that is very useful in the homeopathic approach is the family of related remedies. So for each remedy, you have the remedies that follow well, or complementary remedies and similars, etc. And I've done already some years ago a book by collating again many sources, etc., and creating this little repertory on related remedies. And I'm going to show you now how this can be used. First of all, I would like to define a little bit these words, because different authors use different words for the same thing. It's sometimes quite confusing. And the one way to think about related remedies is to reply to the question, what did the first remedy do? The first remedy you gave. And there are only three possibilities. The first one, you gave a remedy and it didn't act. Possibly even in different potencies, it didn't act. So this means the patient looks like pulsatilla, but you need to give silica. So silica is a similar, some authors say collateral, of pulsatilla. Okay? The second choice is the remedy did act and did improve the patient, and maybe for a longer time, but not anymore. In this situation, some road has been traveled, but you need a complementary remedy to go on and improve the health of the patients further on. Some authors call it a compatible remedy, same idea. And then there are two ways to look at this. You have the remedy that has acted, and the next remedy that will act. You can say this remedy is followed well by, or this remedy follows well. You have follow well by and follows well is just back and forth and back. And the third possibility, if you give a remedy, is that it acted wrongly, it causes some problems, so aggravations, some new symptoms, the patient doesn't feel okay, and then we need an antidote. So these are the three categories, in fact. And again, I will take the same case here. You remember the headache with the odors and the wind exposure? And remember, it looked like argentum nitricum was given. And so one way to use these families would be that in this repertorization, you say, oh, can I add the family of remedies that are similar to argentum nitricum? You see? And it's just like adding a symptom. And you see here that aurum and natmur, and then the lower degree, like lycopodium, arsenicum, etc., are coming up as the major possibilities to reflect for these patients. But you have given most of those remedies, and this repertorization doesn't satisfy you, doesn't inspire you. And so you think, well, you know very well, a case that doesn't evolve, that seems to be blocked, etc. Then we ask ourselves, would the nosodes come in? Well, nosodes are just another family. It's a group of symptoms that belong because they are disease-related, nosos, Greek. And so you can add to the repertorization not only one family, but a second family, like the nosodes family. And then you see that very clearly, carcinosinum is the nosode that comes up as the most appropriate one for this patient.
I didn't know you could do that either. That is so cool.
Yeah, this is a way to play around with the
Yeah.
repertorization by adding families, and that we can repertorize in a digital way. I used to repertorize a constitutional for a constitutional remedy on paper. It took me half an hour to 45 minutes. Now I can look for a constitutional remedy and do 5 repertorizations in different ways in a few minutes, okay, until I am satisfied with the suggestion.
Amazing.
The second idea that came into the synthesis, etc., is the families in rubrics, which means we added a family to a rubric. You know, Kentian Repertory, the idea is a symptom with remedies. Now, in the last version of Synthesis Donus, we have still symptom with remedies, but also families. And so in jealousy, you will find lachesis, but also all the snakes. And because all the snakes tend to be jealous. And I know some people like families a lot. I know some people hate families, don't like them at all. So I just show you the flexibility here that you can display families or not display families at all.
I've
So
really liked the
apologies for
families
that.
coming up with a new Adonis. The bird, it'll come up as AVs, like the bird families, or it'll come up,
Yes, correct.
with fungi families or with Lepidoptera, like the
Yes,
butterflies as a family. I've really
yes.
liked that coming up because it'll just spark your interest and go, oh, that's a good idea. I didn't think about that family. And then it helps you to just go a little bit further from there. So I like that addition.
Yes, this is what I'm going to show you with a little example. Totally right. So first I show the screen how it looks like with the family. The families are here with a gray background. You see, phlegmatic, serious 3, etc. 56 remedies with ailments from discourse, but you can as well use synthesis without those families. It becomes 52, because there is 4 remedies, family remedies less, okay? And then the example here, it's just like you can look at the repertorization in many ways. So if you are convinced that your patient is a plant remedy, then you choose this view, and you see the view here, only plants, and then in this rubric, you will see only plant remedies, okay?
That function I have used a few times. That one's really handy.
Right. Now, here is another case, a real case, with someone with gastrointestinal problems, esophagitis, etc., with a strong, outspoken person, okay? These are the symptoms, the regular symptoms I've taken, you see? Just, I would say, a pretty straightforward repertorization of a case. There is nothing special. Yes, there is something special. There is something special because of the sepia, which is maybe the obvious remedy you would think about without repertorization. You had another number of choices, but you also see here Avis, the one you just mentioned, with a little asterisk. And the asterisk means this is a family. So your repertorization does not only contain remedies, but also a family. And what is the suggestion? What is the new idea of repertorization because of families being included in synthesis? Well, if a family appears in your repertorization, you consider if there are birds, Avis is birds indeed, in your repertorization. And falco here, Falco peregrinus is in falcon, is a bird and covers indeed quite some symptoms of your case. So please go and study Falco peregrinus for this patient. And this approach, again, is, you said, to serve it on a platter. It is to serve the family idea or finding a remedy, including family thinking in the usual way, because anybody is taking the symptoms the usual way. Patient says this and this and this, you reflect, you hierarchize, of course, hierarchy, but you just take the symptoms as always. There's no magic needed. Yeah, maybe a little suggestion, if I may. It may be interesting to put the mind symptoms in one clipboard, to only repertorize the mind symptoms. Why? Because when we added the family symptoms to the repertory, it was mostly mind symptoms. So if you repertorize only the mind symptoms, you will find the family more easily. Look here, these are the mind symptoms of the previous case. You see the avis bang stands out without any doubt, okay? And if you then find a family, and I would say in the first 20, my experience is in the first 20, in the first 20 remedies of your regular repertorization that you have been doing your whole life, well, then please check the members of that family. This is the whole concept. Voilà.
Great advice.
So these are a few ideas that I have highlighted, referencing the information, making it transparent, Böninghausen Kent integrated, the views, digitalizing the repertorization allows a plural. You see the S bold and underlined.
I love it.
Description of pain, families, finding the family in the case, in the repertorization. So yeah, I think a bird's eye, or they say bird's eye view of the 40 years we've been working on this.
Oh,
You know, I am very open to any suggestions, been all my life. And in fact, in the first blueprint I wrote, this project welcomes any criticism. Okay, so any input you want to give, please contact me. Just before you ask some other questions, I don't want to show this here. This is me in front of my library here in back
wow.
with
Oh, I
all the
love that you've kept
versions
all those
synthesis.
copies. Oh, that's
Yeah,
beautiful.
this is the first printed version, loose leaf version in
Wow.
German, 93, the first version in English, 94, and then so on goes up from left to right. And this, yeah, some versions, of course, have been printed many times, but basically every version that has been printed once is on my shelf here
With
with on
Hahnemann at
top.
the top overlooking all of them.
Yes.
I'm sure he is very, very, very proud of you. I have some questions for you, but when I see somebody like you that's done all this work, and what keeps you going? What is the thing that keeps inspiring and keeps making you do another edition and another edition?
Well, a few things. The first thing is that I was fortunate to have a lot of energy my whole
Mm,
life. Even now, I can work. Well, I stopped working because, but I used to work late hours and I've been working until a few years ago. I can say I worked 40 weekends on 52 a year.
wow.
And the
And
other
I
thing
happen
is,
to know via Facebook that you just had your, was it 45th wedding anniversary? So your wife hasn't left you despite working all those weekends.
yeah, that's true. That's true. And my children too. My children too miss me sometimes, but it's
Oh.
okay. But then, okay, besides having the possibility of doing the job, which I'm most grateful elsewise, there is also this sudden realization I can make a change, you
Mm.
see? And then with all these people that got involved into the project, do you know, in the happy days of homeopathy, as I like to call them, and the 80s, etc., our team, the team that was working with me was 120 people. 120.
Wow.
Yeah, from Canada to Australia, from Argentina to Japan. And yeah, you know how you work together on a project, on a team, you just stimulate each other and you see you can make a change. And each version had new items and new ideas and new advantages. And yeah, I was just totally driven and passionate by the work that I could do.
Amazing. And what would you say has been the hardest, if you think about the past 40 odd years of you doing this? Or maybe specifically with synthesis, what's been the hardest part of all of that for you?
Well, the hardest part was in the beginning, do you know?
Mm.
Because in the beginning, there was this atmosphere where most of the homeopaths would say computer and homeopathy, no. Homeopathy is art and science, and art is surely not computers. Even the science is not computers. And stay out. I've been rejected from presenting at congresses because I wanted to show how the computer repertorization worked. Do you believe this?
It's crazy.
Yeah,
Crazy.
yeah, I had to fight my way through, and this is why I like to mention David Warburton again, because I know also has had a hard time and a fight to make people understand that the computer was not a devil,
Mm.
but an ally to improve repertorization and find remedies, etc. So in the beginning, those first years, yeah, I had some anecdotes which I won't mention, but slowly people started accepting that computer repertorization and computer repertories were used, but in the beginning, it was like the devil.
Wow. It feels like there's like a little bit of a parallel now between the 80s and 90s because you said about the happy days of homeopathy. I believe the happy days of homeopathy are here now. And we are like homeopathy. I think in Belgium, it sounds like it's not going so great because I think Anna Vivek was saying that her school closed down. But certainly down under, homeopathy is rocking. So,
Oh,
um,
really?
yeah, so I think the happy days are back. But we're having a similar thing at the moment with AI and homeopathy. And some homeopaths are getting really worried that, their jobs will be taken by AI. What are your thoughts?
I think if people or patients even would really rely on AI to find a homeopathic remedy, you need to be able to steer the jumbo jet to get anywhere.
Mm,
Yeah.
mm. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. We put an AI bot on my website about 2 years ago and it's had tens of thousands of queries on it. And we've had so many emails from mums saying, "Thank you so much. My child had an ear infection and I hopped onto your bot at 2 o'clock in the morning and it gave me a remedy and it helped." So I think there's, some good to it as well. But it is interesting. It does sometimes spit out some pretty wacky stuff. So you're right. It's
Yes,
going to be an interesting
absolutely.
journey.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
where you're standing at the moment, where do you see the future of the repertory going, and specifically the future of synthesis and radar opus? Like, what's your wildest dream for where you see this going in the future?
Well, we are working. I'm working on the next version, integrating more stuff, doing the usual thing. There is a lot. Even even in 2022, everything we had has not been integrated. We just had to release. But so there is still more stuff coming up. I would like to release at least one more, two more versions of synthesis before I hand over to other people. And then, as you say, there may be times, there may be coming a time that synthesis gets involved into AI as well. So I'm constantly working on that as well. Of course, it's all in the dream stage. It's all in the project phase.
Any final words that you want to share with us, Frederick?
Yeah. The main thing I would like to ask is if anybody is inspired by what I say or has ideas or information they would like to share, especially on the level of synthesis, which is my main brainchild, I believe. Please contact me and write to me, send me the information, the suggestions, as again, corrections you believe must be made. We will verify them, etc., etc. So, yeah, please come in and help us improve in the next version of synthesis.
That's amazing. I almost can't imagine that it can possibly be improved. But if anyone can think of a way, do get in touch with Frederick.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you so much for your time. It's always such a delight speaking with you. And from my whole heart, thank you so much for the work that you've done because I could not do my job if it wasn't for synthesis in my clinic on a daily basis. So thank you.
That's a fantastic encouragement.
Chat soon. Bye.